Hey there. Let's say you want to get into cosplaying or just prop making in general, but you think you lack the skills or the tools necessary to get into this. I want to show you that you don't need to pay a premium to have fun and make something like this Hornet mask from Silksong. And in fact, it can be quite easy. So first of all, I believe it best to explain patterns and their importance. This paper model that I made will be separated into my pattern and act like a guideline for my mask. Now, as to how I even made the paper model, I created this very simple Hornet mask in Blender. Then I took it to Pepakura to make a 2D printable version. Now, Pepakura is not free, and I said you don't need premium tools. Yep, you got me. I'm a liar. Just kidding. You can easily get by with this website called Papermaker, and it's free 99, ladies and gentlemen. Free. Don't worry about the 99, it's just a saying. Anyway, you'd print out that file, make your paper model, and then make your pattern. With your brand new pattern, you're going to trace it onto some EVA foam. And right here, I'm working with some 6mm EVA foam, which I believe is a pretty good thickness for this helmet and isn't outrageously priced, but of course it isn't free, it's still priced, so make sure to place your pattern as to not waste too much of the foam. Another note, either have some sort of weights to hold down the patterns in the foam, or just flatten the foam out with a heat gun or even a hairdryer. Don't do what I did, it's a struggle without reason. And as you can see, while I'm finishing up here, once I take this off, it looks a lot more messy than it has to be, but it doesn't matter. Next up, we have the cutting. If you don't want to get an X-Acto knife and prepare an area, just use scissors. They work just fine. Don't use a random pocket knife if you have scissors, and if you must resort to a pocket knife, just be cautious to not cut yourself, and children, adult supervision. Or better yet, just ask the adult to cut it out for you. Anyway, the reason you might hear someone say not to use scissors is for the less than clean cuts, as shown by this beautiful diagram. Now that we have our EVA foam pattern cut out, it's time to glue them together. For this, I'm placing a trash bag over my surface and deciding what I want to start with. Now for glue, we're using contact cement. And while I figure out my pattern, let's talk about proper precautions. When using contact cement, make sure to be in a very well ventilated area. Windows open, folks, even if you live in Florida and it feels like 110 degrees outside sometimes. Also, if this stuff gets on your skin, make sure to wash your hands immediately and quite thoroughly. Anyway, with a cheap brush, I apply the contact cement to the correct surfaces of my cutout, and while I wait for the pieces to dry, I start applying the glue to the areas of relief, which, to be honest, I made up that name. I'm not certain what they're called. What I do know, though, is that when you connect them together, they make your flat foam not so flat and more of round. And since I'm such a good demonstrator, I intentionally show you why you want to let the glue dry a little before trying to connect it. See, once this stuff is dry, it connects quite fast and becomes very hard to separate if you don't act fast. But even in the worst case scenario that you don't act fast enough, we can still fix it. And actually, with this next example coming up, I will show you exactly how to fix it. Now with this next piece, I have plenty of examples, none of which were really intentional, but here I didn't mark my cutout. So I was looking at my patterns, but I matched it up wrong. As you can see, this line doesn't match up with that line, so it's actually upside down. But that's fine. This will let me show you that even if you glue something on incorrectly, you can still fix it in the future. So right now, past me is just gluing stuff on and really thinking that I'm doing a good job here. I can even point this out, but it wasn't correct. But leads me into the next thing. I noticed I didn't actually cut everything. So this lets me talk about relief cuts. So here I'm actually cutting them at an angle to make it more curvy. Relief cuts are already going to make it curvy, but this adds to the curve. It kind of makes this point as the diagram shows, and you can sand it down later. But to keep this brief, I'm just going to cut out all of the mistake gluing, I guess you could call it, and more of skip forward to where I realized my mistake. And look at that, I realized my mistake. And to follow up my brilliance, I pull out my pocket knife, which was so much more dull than I thought. And it just wasn't worth the effort. I switched to scissors pretty fast because it's just not safe. And once I switched to the scissors, it went by a lot faster, as you can see. Now that I was done cutting all of my mistakes, I guess you could call it, I reassembled it correctly and I started gluing it as per the pattern suggested. Now while this horn took me a handful of minutes to glue together, I'll let you just watch it in a handful of seconds. Now, I wasn't fully true to my pattern. At the tip of this horn, I did cut off a little bit because I wasn't fully happy with the shape that it was going to make, so I cut that off and just added glue. Now, just do all that again, except inside out, aka flip your pattern and get the other side of the mask. Now, with our whole mask, I'm about to fill in any holes or gaps we may have with something called EVA Foam clay. And while this will make your mask come out more smooth, it is not needed. In fact, I decided that I'd sand off majority of this EVA Foam clay to show you that you don't need these extra things to still make something you're happy with. Totally not that I didn't want to wait 48 hours for it to set. The goal of sanding, though, is to make corners not so rough, and instead smooth and round. We're looking for a smooth mask, not a rough mask. You can either use hand sandpaper or Dremel or even electric sander, but hand sandpaper will work just fine, just quite a bit slower. Okay, on to painting. So, since I don't want to dox myself, I'm just going to go and paint you a nice little picture. So first off, let's talk about precautions. So this is you. You should be wearing a mask. You should be doing this outside where the grass is and the sun is to get some, well, ventilation. Next up, you have you, and then you have maybe your arm, you have your can here, it's going to spray out here, and this is going to be about maybe 1 to 2 feet of distance between you and your subject. So let's say my Hornet mask is over here. This is about 1 to 2 feet. Yeah, this is a Hornet mask for sure. But you're going to be 1 to 2 feet when spraying this primer to get some nice even coats on this thing. It sucks to spray paint in Florida, and maybe it's just me wrongly using the spray paint, but I added a few layers, got a little splotchy, which is mostly my fault, but even the contact cement was melting and the seams were kind of ripping apart. So for this solution that I found, I actually just bought some Mondo Llama, just the Target brand acrylic paint, and just lathered it on. I didn't videotape this, but I do have a nice little picture for you. Anyways, after just 4 days, these were the results. Wait, nope, I forgot the eyes. So, for the eyes, I just put some old black cloth that I had, made sure I could see through it, but to keep my head in place for it to not rotate, I put this little chin pad of foam, and I also put this one and this one to the side, so when I turn my head, the mask stays in place, and it actually turns with my head. But now, for the grand reveal. With it all said and done, I'm quite happy. It might not be perfect by any means, but I had a good time. And I hope maybe this inspires you to go and create something, maybe out of your comfort zone or just something in general. And even if it's not perfect, it doesn't need to be. Find beauty in your imperfections. But until next time.